The air stiffened, not with sound but with absence. A shadow moved where light once dared to rest. He did not walk, nor did he fly. He arrived. The stars blinked, but did not speak. Even they knew his name was not to be uttered. Was he ever born? Or was he the breath drawn before the first sorrow? What if the first tear ever shed was not from man but from the heavens, mourning who he was to become? Close your eyes. When you subscribe, you carry forward a memory heaven tried to erase. The sky had not yet been born when his will whispered through the void. There was no sound, for sound had not been shaped. No stars blinked, for they were not yet lit. And yet, something stirred a ripple in the stillness, like breath against a candle that was never lit. In that breath, the first name was not spoken but remembered. What kind of name echoes before language exists? What kind of being is formed not of clay or light, but of silence itself? The angel of death did not awaken. He did not emerge. He was simply there, woven into the hush between beginnings, his purpose not yet needed, but already grieved. What did the heavens see before they wept? Was there mourning in the throne's shadow, knowing what must one day be released? In the hollows of eternity, before gardens bloomed and rivers split the land, there was an absence carved gently into the tapestry of all that would one day be called creation. That absence had a face, and though no one dared draw it, even the stars would later tremble in its reflection. He was not like the others, not of the angels who rejoiced in songs of mourning, not of the watchers who peered into the hearts of men. He did not sing. He listened. He did not move. He waited. And though the heavens were filled with praise, he stood apart his silence, a praise more ancient than any hymn. Why would God shape a messenger for an hour that had not yet come? Why birth an answer to a question not yet asked? Perhaps because even in paradise, sorrow was foretold, and the angel was not born of cruelty, but of compassion too deep for this world to hold. Close to the throne, he stood alone, not because he was banished, but because none dared stand beside him. Light dimmed near him, though he cast no shadow, and where others were crowned with radiance, his was a cloak of stillness that could not be removed. He bore no wings, only presence, no weapon, only remembrance. And in that remembrance he held not memories, but futures. Futures of names, moments, last breaths, the silence after a mother closes the eyes of her child, the sigh before a prophet surrenders his bones to the mountain. These were the shapes, folded into his being, not as weight, but as destiny. Was he mourned by the angels? Did even Gabriel avert his gaze? None know. Even among the hosts, his name was not said aloud. It was not forbidden. It was simply avoided. Not in hatred, but in reverence. For he was not dead, he was the mercy that followed pain, the gatekeeper when the road could go no further. He did not sleep, for sleep belongs to those who dream. And what could one such as he dream of? Not love, for he had no heart of flesh. Not peace, for he was born of necessity. Yet perhaps, in the stillness where even thought is not heard, he dreamed only of being forgotten. Is that why he never speaks? Not because he cannot, but because he wishes not to be remembered, because he longs for a day when no soul must meet his eyes. Yet he is not cruel. He is gentle. His hand does not tear, it releases. His presence does not strike, it beckons. And those who have seen him in their last moments do not cry out in fear. They cry because they recognize him, as if he has been walking beside them all their lives, unseen, unjudging, patient. And when they ask, "Are you the end?" he does not answer. But something in his silence says, "No, I am the one who carries you to what comes after." In the great silence before time opened its mouth, this was the one the divine named, not with thunder, not with fire, but with a whisper so soft, even creation did not hear it. Only he did. And when that whisper entered his being, he bowed not in grief, not in pride, but in eternal stillness, and the universe waited. When the world first inhaled light, he did not flinch. When Eden stirred and the birds began their soft hymns in the mist, he did not smile. He watched, not with eyes, but with a stillness that saw deeper than sight. For he was not made to witness beginnings. He was made to walk the final garden path after all songs had ended. How does one live, knowing their purpose is only found in farewell? How does one wait, while joy dances across creation and love is written into every leaf and stream? Does the angel of death feel longing, or is he untouched by the ache that binds men to memory? When the first man rose from clay, it was not the angel's hand that shaped him, but he was there far off, in the hush that followed the breath of life. He did not move. He did not need to. For the moment Adam exhaled, the angel knew that one day he would return to receive the final one. Was there sorrow in the angel's knowing, or was it peace? Time had not yet bled its first hour when he began to walk. Slow, unhurried steps through shadow, through silence, through the veil between what is seen and what is promised. He had no realm, no domain. His kingdom was wherever endings gathered like dew on the edge of morning. He visited no one, but all would meet him. And though he carried no scroll, no horn, no seal, he carried remembrance, not of past deeds, but of the exact moment each soul would look upon him. And he never forgot. In a hidden chamber between the stars, there is said to be a place no foot has touched. Not even the angels of praise are allowed there, a chamber where the names of all who breathe flicker on walls of unseen flame. Each name is a light that burns with its appointed hour. When the hour comes, the light dims and the angel walks. What kind of being waits? Not for permission, but for the exact second the wind changes. He has no rival. No second angel shadows his duty. No voice contradicts his path. Because he is not a warrior, he is a rhythm, a decree, a seal written before the quill was ever carved. And yet, even among the angels, there were questions. Why him? Some once whispered in the hush of the divine court. Why shape one only for sorrow? But the throne did not answer. For in the heart of the one who commands stars and silence alike, there is knowledge beyond judgment. Perhaps it is mercy that the angel of death walks alone. For who could bear the burden of his memory? He does not touch until the final breath. And even then, his hand is not cold, it is steady. His face is not cruel, it is unreadable, like the surface of a deep well. Some say he weeps, but only when a soul has never been loved. Others say he hums, a song no living creature has ever heard fully, but one that lingers like a forgotten lullaby at the edge of dreams. Does he remember every soul he's carried? Or does he forget them the moment he lets go? There is a legend among the scribes of the desert that once, when the world was young, he knelt beside a dying bird and held its trembling feathers with a gentleness even the sun refused to interrupt. And in that moment, it is said, he whispered the name of God. What happens when such a being speaks? What is birthed from the silence between two syllables of the divine? Perhaps that is why he does not speak again. For words are too heavy when one carries the end of all things, and still he walks, not out of duty, but because the story is not complete until he arrives. There is a place beyond time's reach where even light dares not stretch itself too thin, a place of still breath, where silence holds dominion like a crown of unseen weight. This is where the angel of death waits between names, not asleep, not restless, simply waiting. What does eternity feel like to one who cannot die? Is it peace, or is it the loneliness of purpose unshared? When all beings rejoice in birth and fear the end, who stands in the middle, unchanged by either flame or cradle? In this sacred stillness, he sees the unfolding of fate like parchment unrolling across a windless room. No ink stains its surface. Only time writes there. Only the will beyond the stars gives its weight. And he follows it, not with steps, but with presence. long before Cain raised his hand, long before breath turned into guilt. He knew the day would come when man's hand would bring the first return, and he would not come to punish, but to carry. He is not sorrowful. He is not judgmental. He is the space between the last heartbeat and the soul's release. He is the answer to a question too old for words. Where does the spirit go once the body forgets it? He does not look back. Not because he lacks care, but because his eyes are always turned toward the next name waiting to be remembered. Do you think he pities us? Or are we too fleeting for such feelings? The wind knows him. It shifts when he passes. It folds around him, as if even air mourns his nearness. Children sometimes see him in dreams before they have the words to fear him. They describe him as gentle, like a cloaked figure beneath a tree with no roots, watching, waiting, welcome. And when the soul separates quietly, like thread loosening from ancient cloth, he does not seize it. He does not snatch or bind. He invites. And if the soul is ready, it moves toward him the way water finds the river's bend. Inevitable, soft, final. Some say the angel has no face. Others say he wears yours, just for a moment, so you are not afraid. But the truth is simpler. He wears only stillness. And in that stillness is the echo of the first silence, the one that came before the words, be. Why does he never come early? Why does he never come late? Because he is not a being of choice. He is a being of time fulfilled. A whisper remembered at the exact moment it must be heard. And when the soul departs, some with joy, some with regret, some with aching surrender, he does not judge. That is not his burden, he only carries. And though no one sees where he walks, those who follow feel the pull. There is no struggle. Only the realization that you've always known this was how it would end. Not cruel, not rushed, but written. In the sacred texts, buried in caves and hearts alike, there are lines too fragile to read aloud. Lines that speak of the angel not as destroyer, but as the final servant, the one who completes the cycle, so that the next may begin. And when the last soul of the age has passed, and even the mountains forget how to stand, who will he become? The legends do not say. They only whisper that even the angel of death will one day be called by a name not written yet. And in that final calling, he too will bow, not in sorrow, but in peace. In the hidden folds of the universe, where even angels lower their wings and the stars hold their breath, he exists like a shadow cast by God's own silence. Not an enemy, not a curse, but a necessity crafted with tenderness too ancient to understand. Does he remember his own beginning? Or was he shaped so softly that even memory dared not take form? Some say he was not forged like the others, that he was breathed into being from the grief of a future not yet lived. That before Eden even opened its gates, the angel of death was already present, seated beside the gates like a quiet guardian of what would one day be lost. And when the garden bloomed in golden hush, and Adam opened his eyes to name the animals, the angel did not watch from the heights. He stood beneath the trees, where the fig leaves whispered things only the soul could hear. Was it then that he wept for the first time? Not for Adam, but for the day Adam's children would forget how to walk without fear. What does it mean to serve the Most High in silence? To be spoken of in every age, but never heard? To visit every land, but leave no footprints? The angel does not ask questions, but perhaps in the deepest quiet he wonders, not out of rebellion, but because wondering is the only form of longing he's ever known. Does he long to be known not as an end, but as a return? Does he ever wish to whisper instead of arriving? They say he walks through the door none can see, the door between breaths, between the last tear and the first forgetting. And when he opens it, he does not push. He simply stands beside it, until the soul finds the courage to step through. In rare moments, when holy ones die, those whose hearts have tasted the sacred so deeply The world itself aches to hold them. The angel lingers a moment longer, as if honoring the weight of a life that remembered what it was never meant to forget. And in that pause, time listens. Birds cease their flight, winds still their voices, and a silence deeper than death itself flows across the earth. What is that silence? Is it mourning, or is it awe? He is neither cruel nor kind. He is not measured by the sorrow he brings, but by the completion he allows. And though the living cry at his presence, the soul freed rarely looks back. There are those who say the angel has a mark, not upon his brow, but upon his being, a single phrase, never spoken, burned into the core of who he is. And that phrase is not end, it is fulfilled. For he does not take, he delivers. He does not destroy, he returns. And when his task is done, he leaves behind no echo, no stain, no trace, only the softest hush. The kind of hush that settles in a room just after someone says goodbye, and the light through the window no longer feels the same. He walks again, through realms without name, to wait for the next whisper, the next name. And perhaps, as he walks, he remembers the first name ever whispered to him, the name of a child not yet born, a soul not yet weighed, a story not yet written. And in that memory, he smiles, though no one has ever seen it. And the stars, watching from far above, shine a little dimmer, as if remembering what they too must one day face. And in the stillness between that thought and the next, a question is left behind. What if the first thing ever created was goodbye? The earth had never tasted blood before. It knew the weight of feet, the dance of rain, the fall of fruit, but never the warm, silent bloom of crimson soaking into dust. And when it did, when Abel's breath fled, and his body slumped like folded linen, the soil did not know whether to receive or to refuse. What does the ground do when innocence is spilled? Does it swallow, or does it scream? Cain stood alone, but not untouched. His hands trembled not from the act, but from the echo of it. Murder had no name before that day. Now it did. And the name was his. But something else stood there too. Something that had not moved for generations, had not stirred since Eden's gates closed with fire. A presence, a stillness, a breath that did not belong to wind or man. Cain did not see him at first. Few ever do. But the angel of death had come not to punish, not to avenge, only to receive, to witness. He did not raise his hand. He did not speak. He simply stepped beside the fallen form of Abel, as if waiting for something only the soul could hear. Was Abel afraid when he saw him? Or did he recognize the silence, like a forgotten song returning in a dream? Cain turned, and in the air behind him, thicker than sorrow, thinner than breath, he felt something, not eyes, but a gaze. The kind of gaze that sees not just your body, but the hour of your death is still sleeping in your bones. Did Cain feel guilt? Or did he feel the cold inevitability that he too would one day be met by the same stillness? There is a legend among the old tribes that Cain ran not just from the voice of the Most High, but from the footsteps that followed him wherever he fled. Not loud, not fast, but constant. The footsteps of the one who had seen the first soul leave its shell. And though the angel did not chase, he was always near. For Cain had done something terrible. He had awakened death, not as a myth, not as a warning, but as a reality that now lived among men. And once death walks the earth, it never forgets the path. What did the trees say as they watched the angel carry Abel's soul? Did they bow, or did their leaves fall in mourning? What did the birds see perched in silence as a man became the first grave? And what did the angel feel? He who was formed to wait now had his first burden. The name, Abel, once only a flicker in the unseen scroll, now glowed softly, fulfilled. The first return, not a king, not a prophet, just a brother, a shepherd with a heart full of trust, and a breath stolen before its time. The angel of death cradled the soul without hands, lifted it without movement, and in the air something shifted. He was no longer just a whisper in the silence. He had now been touched by man's choice, and the burden was heavier than even he had expected. Does the angel mourn, or does he merely remember? Cain wondered, cursed not just by the heavens, but by the knowledge that wherever he fled, he had been the reason the angel walked. And some say that even after Cain built cities, even after his children laughed and danced and sang, he could still hear the footsteps. Not always. Just in the moments before sleep, in the wind that pressed against his tent, in the silence between two thoughts. A reminder that death had entered the world through his hands, but it would leave through the angels. And Abel, his name still echoes softly in the chambers of the beyond, the first to be carried. And in that sacred carrying, the angel of death was no longer a being of waiting. He had become a messenger, and the message had been sent. The years passed, but the soil did not forget. Where blood once seeped into its lips, flowers refused to grow. And in that patch of hardened earth, the wind walked differently, as if it carried the weight of a memory too sacred to speak aloud. Cain bore no crown, only a mark, a silent sign that he was neither chosen nor forsaken but remembered. And in that remembrance, the angel watched him from afar, not with hatred, not with pity, with patience. Why do some souls flee even when no one follows? Why do the guilty walk as if footsteps chase them through dream and dust? Cain built walls, towers, cities of stone and bronze, but none were high enough to silence the echo of that first moment, the moment he felt something ancient breathe down his neck. Not vengeance, not wrath, just presence, a presence older than fear, older than Cain's regret, a presence that did not knock, but waited, and the longer Cain lived, the louder the silence became. For the angel of death was not sent to punish him. His task was already done. Abel had been taken. The path had opened. The seal had been broken. From that day forward, death no longer belonged to silence. It is from now. It had rhythm. It had a messenger. And though Cain lived many years long enough to see his blood stretch across the hills like wild vines, he never again slept without dreaming of eyes that saw through dust and skin. Were those dreams mercy or torment? Did the angel of death weep for Cain, not for what he had done, but for what he had become? A man who saw the world as a wound he could never heal. There is a tale, told only by candlelight in forgotten places, that one night, when Cain stood by a river under a harvest moon, he heard a whisper, not from the wind, but from within. "You will not meet me yet." And Cain fell to his knees, not because of the voice, but because he knew it was true. There would be no peace for him, not yet. Not until time, not until mercy, not until every breath he was given burned through the silence he had summoned. And the angel, he did not return to Cain after that. He had no reason to. His presence had done its work. Because sometimes death does not take. It waits, not to harm, but to remind myself that life is a gift, sharpened by the knowledge it will one day end. That every breath is holy, precisely because it will be the last someday. And Cain's descendants, they carried that memory. They sang songs with mourning laced inside joy. They carved images of veiled figures on their pottery figures with no faces, only cloaks and shadows, always watching. Did they know the angel had walked among them, not with a sword, not with flame, but with a silence so heavy, even the earth changed its shape. In time, the people forgot Abel's face, forgot his voice, but they never forgot that something unseen now traveled beside them. And the angel? He returned to the in-between, to the quiet chamber between stars, to the book that now had its first fulfilled name, and on its cover still blank, still untouched by hand, was the breath of the one who had whispered it into being. What happens when the sacred silence is broken for the first time? Does the world bend toward sorrow? Or is it simply reminded that it was never meant to last? And when the angel of death folded back into the stillness, what did he carry with him? Not just a soul, but the memory of the first goodbye the earth ever heard. The shadow of that first death did not fade. It stretched across generations like a veil laid over the hearts of men. Even those who had never known Abel, never walked beside Cain, felt a quiet ache when the wind turned cold or the stars blinked slower than usual. What did the angel leave behind that day? A wound? A presence? Or a memory stitched into the marrow of mankind? There are stories whispered around dying fires of mothers waking in the night, clutching their children because they dreamt of a presence at the edge of their tent, a figure not cruel, not angry, but ancient, waiting. They call it fear, but fear fades. This did not. This was something older, something that reminded Abel, and the angel did remember. He did not remember as mortals do, with pictures and faces and the aching of forgetting. He remembered with stillness, with purpose. Every soul he had ever carried, he still carried, not a burden, but in remembrance. Abel was the first, and because he was first, he was never alone. Even now, in realms unseen, there is a quiet place where Abel walks, where the earth does not tremble and the sky hums with peace. And when the angel of death visits, he does not arrive with shadow. He arrives with silence full of understanding. Abel does not turn to look, he only nods. And the angel, in that moment, bows slightly, not in servitude, but in memory. Back on the earth, the world had begun to speak of death aloud, not as a mystery, but as a presence they could no longer deny. And with that knowing came a shift. They began to name it, to describe it, to fear it. But names hold power, and the angel bore no name man could grasp. So they called him what they feared most: End, Shadow, Reaper, Judgment. But he was none of these. He was not the blade. He was the hand that catches what the blade releases. He was not the storm. He was the one who walked in the stillness that follows. Even prophets began to ask of him. In quiet supplications they wondered, "Who are you that comes to the holy and the sinner alike? Why do you not delay for the child, or hasten for the tyrant? Do you know love, O angel of endings?" But he never answered, not because he could not, because the questions were not meant for him. They were meant for the one who had whispered his name. And so the angel kept walking, through cities of bronze, through fields of blood, through laughter and war, through song and ruin. Each soul he gathered left a small hush behind a hush, that some filled with grief, others with prayer. Cain's footsteps, too, eventually slowed, his eyes dulled, his voice thinned like the mist in the early morning. And one night, whether by design or mercy, the angel stood beside him once more. No accusation, no flame, just the same stillness Cain had felt so many years ago beside his brother's body. Did he weep? No one knows. But perhaps, in that final moment, he found peace in the one presence that had never abandoned him. The angel did not speak. He only received, and Cain's name was finally sealed, not with wrath, but with silence. And somewhere in the folds of unseen parchment, a second name glowed beside the first, and in the sky, a single star dimmed, not in sorrow, but in remembrance. What if the one you fear the most is the only one who never left you? The night was not silent. It held its breath. Every stone, every reed of papyrus, every cradle carved in Nile clay, trembled beneath the weight of a command. No man could hear, but every soul could feel. Egypt did not know that its last hour had begun, but the angel of death did. He did not rise from the earth. He did not descend from the stars. He appeared, not on fire, not in light, but in stillness that drowned the wind. Why do cities sleep deepest the night before they fall? Why do parents hold their children closer when they feel a fear they cannot name? That night, doors were marked, not in gold, not in titles, but in blood. Blood brushed on wooden thresholds, a whisper between man and the divine. What did the lamb know as its life was taken for this strange protection? Did it sense the angel coming before the paint dried? The slaves moved silently. They did not speak as they marked their homes, for they had been told, "Make haste, be ready. This night will not pass gently." And across the palace, beneath pillars shaped like open lotus flowers, Pharaoh slept. His son, draped in linens of ivory and blue, breathed softly, a prince unaware that breath is a borrowed thing. And above them, unseen, the angel stood between time and obedience. He waited, not for permission, but for the hour to turn. He held no sword, he wore no armor. Yet all who have seen that night in dream or scripture remember the hush before the sorrow, because death did not roar. It passed like a shadow, remembering its shape, and where the mark was absent, the angel entered, not with rage, not with cruelty, but with purpose older than the pyramids, older than the river, older than Pharaoh's crown. And when he touched, it was not pain that remained, it was silent, the kind that makes a mother's soul crack before her voice does. Did the angel feel it, the ache of 1,000 homes collapsing into mourning? Did he pause, as the first child's soul rose, shimmering like mist in the moonlight? He did not weep, he could not. But there are those who believe that night left something in him, a crack, a breathless grief, because this was no ordinary harvest. These were the firstborn. Each child has a promise, each breath a thread in the fabric of a kingdom. And he was the one who ended the song before the final note. Why was he chosen for this? Was it justice, judgment, or the fulfillment of a warning long ignored? Even the Nile did not flow as swiftly that night. Its waters, red with memory, seemed to drag their way through the reeds as if reluctant to carry the cries. But where the doors bore the sign, the angel passed by. He did not enter, he did not linger. He honored the mark, he honored obedience. What does it mean to be spared by death? Is it luck, faith, or merely a name not yet called? In the morning, Egypt awoke to a wail. The heavens did not echo, because even the skies were still. Pharaoh's palace was no different. Power does not shield against decree, and when he looked upon his lifeless heir, something in him broke, not pride, not a rule, but the illusion that he had ever been greater than the one who commands even death. And the angel? He had already gone. He left no mark, no sign, only empty beds and the weight of what cannot be undone. What happens when the hand that carries becomes the hand that divides? In the streets of Goshen, the marked doors opened slowly. Fathers stepped out, breathless, holding staffs like shields. Mothers clutched their children's shoulders, searching the air for a sound that would not come. And in that holy silence, there was one truth. They were still alive. Was it fear they felt, or was it awe? For something had passed in the night, a being not of storm or fire, but of obedience, pure and unshaken. The angel had walked among them, feet never touching dust, eyes fixed on a path only heaven could draw. And where blood marked wood, he paused not to enter, but to acknowledge. The mark was not magic. It was a memory. It was obedience etched in crimson, a whisper from slave to sky saying, "I remember who I am." And in that remembrance they were spared. Why does death listen to blood? Why does the angel, ancient as time, bend to the will of a symbol? Perhaps because he, too, remembers a time before disobedience, a time when man knew his name was borrowed and gave it back in surrender. In the chambers of Pharaoh, grief knelt like a king before a throne it could not see. The child's body lay still, not marred, not wounded, just empty. The soul had been taken gently, For the angel does not brutalize, he receives. But for those who remain, gentleness can be more terrible than violence. There was no storm, no shaking earth, only stillness. And in stillness, the truth screams loudest. Pharaoh, once God in his own mind, now stared into the absence of breath. Did he recognize the one who had come? Did he feel that sacred presence still lingering, like a hymn that refuses to leave a room? The angel did not turn back. He had done what was commanded, not by vengeance, but by divine decree. He returned to the place between, where names are weighed and time is folded. But something had shifted, for in taking the firstborns, he had not just carried souls, he had carried judgment. And that burden lingers. Do angels feel sorrow when they obey? Or is obedience its own language, a song only the faithful can hear? In that silence, a nation broke, and another long enslaved was set free. The cost, the breath of the innocent, the method, a door, marked not by might, but by surrender. What mystery is this that surrender protects, while power is left weeping? As dawn spread across the red earth, the people of the blood-marked doors gathered. Some cried, some fell to their knees, some simply stood in stillness, not because they knew what had happened, but because they felt what had passed. A being had moved among them, a messenger who obeyed the voice no man dared name. And now the door was closed. The act is complete. The firstborns carried, their names now glowing among the records no hand has ever held. What did the angel do with those souls? Did he guide them through a path of light? Did he sing to them? Or did he simply walk beside them, silent as always? Is his presence a comfort to those who had not yet known fear? This was not just death. This was a sign, a seal, a line drawn in eternity between obedience and defiance. And the angel? He was the line, not because he wished to be, but because he had always been. He who moves when the command is spoken, he who passes when the name is written, he who sees every soul not as breath, but in return. And long after the sun climbed the sky, and Pharaoh wept over a kingdom unraveling, the angel stood again in the place of quiet, where only he and the one who made him dwell. And in that sacred hush, he remembered the children, not as victims, but as fulfilled names. The people departed at dawn. Their hands still trembled, though they held treasures of gold and silver. Their eyes flicked backward, toward Egypt, a land they once called captivity, now reduced to silence. Behind them, cries still rose, not of battle, but of mourning. For in every home untouched by the mark, there was a child who would not awaken. And above it all, unseen, the angel of death had already gone. He did not linger to see grief. He had no hunger for sorrow. His purpose was not pain. It was a passage, yet the memory of his presence remained. It clung to the stones, to the garments of the departing slaves, to the breath of mothers who knew what could have been. Was it the gratitude they felt, or a sacred fear? They had marked their doors in obedience, but did they know the weight of the one who passed over them? What did they think of the messenger, who came without form, without voice, yet held the power to silence every lullaby in the land? The journey had begun, but the memory of that night would travel with them, even when the sea opened, even when the manna fell, even when the mountain burned. They would remember the night death walked among them and did not enter. And the angel? He returned to the chamber of names, the place where every soul is recorded, not by merit or status, but by the hour it will be called. He unrolled the scroll that does not burn, does not fade, and beside each name he had carried, he pressed silence. For that is how he seals a life not with ink, but with stillness. Some believe he carries the laughter of each child he receives, folded gently into the folds of his cloak, not as a trophy, but as a prayer. Because even for him, the death of the innocent is a weight unlike any other. He is not deaf to sorrow, he is only silent about it. For if he wept at every loss, the heavens would drown. But in this silence, there is reverence, not detachment, not cruelty, reverence. He does not speak because his task speaks louder than any voice. He does not pause because time itself leans upon his arrival. And when his name is whispered in fear, he does not answer, because he is not afraid. He is a fulfillment. The final syllable at the end of the sacred sentence. And as the people marched into wilderness, carrying bread without leaven, he watched from the place between. He does not choose when to come. He comes when chosen. Even now, beneath stars that have forgotten the Nile, his path is remembered, through blood-marked doors, through the breathless quiet of royal halls, through the chambers of the unseen. He came, he passed, he remembered. And when the scroll of Egypt's firstborn was closed, he pressed his palm upon it, and the parchment did not burn its side. A sound no ear has heard, but every soul somehow knows. Because to be human is to live under the knowledge that one day he will stand beside your door, not in cruelty, not in haste, but in the hour written for you before your mother ever called your name. And when he comes, he will not knock, he will simply be, still, silent, faithful, and perhaps, if your door bears the right mark, he will pass you by once more. But if not, he will not falter. He has never faltered. And when he takes, it will be as it was in Egypt. One breath, one presence, one end, wrapped in eternity. And when the doors are no longer marked, who will be left to remember why they ever were? The wind atop the mountain was gentle that day, as if the skies themselves had been instructed to be still. Moses stood alone, his eyes weary, his hands empty. The tablets were long gone, the people were far below, and the promised land, just beyond his reach. He did not cry, he did not beg. For prophets understand, when the hour has come, what does it feel like to see the end and not enter it? What do the faithful whisper when they stand at the edge of fulfillment, but are told they will not walk within it? Moses knew, not from punishment, but from peace. And as he leaned upon his staff, his breath slowed, not from age but from readiness. And the angel of death, who had once passed over doors in Egypt, now came not to judge, but to welcome, not with shadow, not with dread, but with the same quiet presence that moved through palaces and deserts alike. He had watched Moses since the day of the basket, since the cry among the reeds. He had stood invisible in Pharaoh's halls, had walked beside him through plagues, had listened as he raised his voice to the mountain and made it tremble. And now he waited, because even for the greatest of prophets, death does not intrude, it invites. Did Moses see him? Perhaps. Some say his eyes turned not dim, but radiant, as if he recognized the one who had carried so many, now come for him. And the mountain stood witness. It did not shake, it did not mourn. It simply received the stillness that followed Moses' final breath. There was no thunder, no fire, only silence, soft and deep, like the hush of a room where someone has just stopped speaking. What did the angel feel? Was this burden lighter, or was it heavier? For to take a prophet is not to end a life. It is to close a chapter written by the hand of heaven itself. And Moses, he was not just a prophet, he was a friend of the divine. Does death knock differently on the doors of those who have seen the face of angels? Does it arrive more gently or more reverently? The angel of death did not bury him. No one did. His grave was known only to the wind, to the dust, to the silence between verses, because some lives are too sacred to be lowered into the earth. Some souls must be carried directly, not with hands, but with remembrance. And the angel carried him, not above the mountain, not beneath it, but into the place where prophets sleep, the place where time forgets itself. And in that realm Moses did not look back, because the faithful do not fear what waits beyond the veil. They only wonder, will it know my name? And the angel, he had always known it. Long before Egypt, long before the bush burned, Long before he parted waters with his voice, it had been written, and now it was fulfilled. What is the difference between dying and being called home? Perhaps the prophets know, and perhaps the angel, who has carried kings and children alike, walks with different footsteps when he carries the ones who spoke not their own words, but heaven's. And Moses slept, not in death, in return, in the hush of the eternal. When the prophets sleep, do they dream of the people they left behind? There was another whose breath carried songs, whose bones held the weight of priesthood, whose every word dripped with remembrance. Aaron, brother of Moses, bearer of the sacred garment, the one who stood between the people and wrath, his incense rising like a fragile bridge of mercy. He too knew the hour. He too felt the wind shift. The mountain that awaited him was not high, but holy. Its rocks seemed carved not by time, but by obedience. And as he climbed, each step was a prayer. Who walks willingly toward the end? Who meets the angel, not with resistance, but with understanding? A prophet, a servant, one who knows that death is not the end of service, but its final altar. Aaron laid aside his robes, not out of shame, but because no garment is needed when meeting the one who has seen every soul unclothed of titles and pride. And there, in the quiet, with his son beside him, he breathed once more, then stopped. No pain, no struggle, only release. And again the angel of death stood present, not to carry judgment, to carry memory. He who had once walked the courts of Pharaoh now walked through the door beyond the world. Does the angel bow deeper when a priest dies? Does he move slower, mindful of the sacred weight he bears? The legends say Aaron's soul rose like smoke, fragrant and unbound, and the angel held it close, not to possess, but to shield, because some souls carry light still burning. And as Aaron was laid to rest by hands that loved him, the mountain grew silent again. Another prophet had been received. Another name, written in silence, was now sealed in peace. But it was not only Moses and Aaron. There were others, prophets who wandered through wilderness and warning, who spoke of kingdoms that would fall, of cities that would rise again, of hearts that would turn and be turned. Some were welcomed, most were not. And still, they spoke, they wrote, they wept, they bled, because truth cannot be silenced by rejection. But when their final moments came, it was not violence that received them, it was the angel. Even the ones who died in dungeons, in deserts, in exile, he was there, always there. Because prophecy does not end with the last word. It ends when the breath behind the word is gathered back by the one who first gave it. And the angel knows this. Perhaps that is why he walks slower when approaching those who lived not for themselves, but for the message they carried. Does he walk in silence, or does even he whisper in reverence? Do the prophets hear him coming not with fear, but with recognition? And when they rise from their bodies, do they ask him questions only he dares carry across the veil? Or do they simply bow, knowing that the messenger is not the end, but the beginning of the mystery they long to enter? The scroll of prophets is long. It stretches across generations, each name written not in ink, but in obedience. And the angel, he remembers them all. He does not forget the tear Jeremiah shed. He remembers the cave where Elijah waited for the whisper. He still carries the echo of Isaiah's trembling when the heavens opened. Every prophet was not just a soul to be received, they were verses written in flesh, returned now to the one who had spoken them into being. And as their eyes closed in this world, they opened in another, and the first thing they saw was the angel, not as an ending, but as a door. And perhaps, in that sacred hush between breaths, the angel speaks a word he speaks to no others, not of sorrow, not of fear, but of welcome. What if the final reward of the prophets is not paradise, but peace? In the dry hills where stones hold the breath of centuries, a man wandered clothed in fire and silence. Elijah. He who spoke and the skies closed. He ran faster than chariots. He whose voice broke kings and whose heart broke in caves. What happens when a prophet no longer wishes to speak? He had seen too much, too many hearts hardened, too many altars broken, too many prayers answered with stones. So he fled, not from fear, but from the ache of faith unmet. And there in the cave he asked the one who formed him, "Have I not done enough?" And the answer came not in thunder, not in earthquake, but in a whisper softer than sorrow. Elijah did not die. No sickness touched him, no sword claimed him. But the time still came, for even those who burn with divine purpose must be gathered home. And so a chariot of fire descended not to kill but to carry, and within that flame the angel waited. Was he the charioteer, or did he stand beside the wheel, cloaked not in flame, but in the stillness that flame obeys? No one saw his face, not even Elisha, whose eyes widened as his master rose. But he felt it, not heat, not wind, but presence. A silence that announced something had ended and something had been fulfilled. Elijah was taken, not to avoid death, but because death could not hold him. The angel did not touch. He simply walked beside the fire, as if guiding it. Does he do this for all the prophets, or only for the few who walk too closely with the divine to ever truly taste decay? Elijah's name was sealed differently, not written in silence but in light. For not all deaths are equal, and some souls are not gathered, they ascend. The angel watches them too, not with envy, but with remembrance, because he knows every name, even the ones not taken by his hand. He stands at every threshold, even when he does not cross it. He watches every last breath, even when it is not surrendered to him, and he remembers, not as men do, not in fragments, but in completeness. He remembers Elijah's voice, calling down fire. He remembers his tears beneath the broom tree. He remembers the silence he left behind. Because every prophet leaves a silence, a unique hush, like the fading of a star that sang once before the world was ready to hear it. And the angel carries that silence. He keeps it in the folds of his being, alongside the names of children and kings, mothers and martyrs. What does it feel like to carry so many final words? Do they echo within him? Do they shape his steps? Or does he remain untouched, the same as the day the name was whispered into him at the beginning of time? Some say the angel envies the prophets, not for their visions, but for their burdens. Because even suffering can be holy when it is chosen for truth. But the angel does not speak, he never confirms, he only continues walking. And Elijah? He is still rising, his fire still dances at the edge of heaven. And his voice, soft now, but never silent, is remembered by the one who watched him leave without dying. Because even in flame, even in flight, no soul ascends without being witnessed. And the angel of death, he is the witness no one sees, the final presence before the world forgets. What if being carried by flame is not escape, but invitation? There was a time, before the rivers knew their names, and before the stars chose their courses, when even angels questioned, not with defiance but with trembling, for beneath the throne that holds all decrees, a whisper stirred, and it was not from man, it was from one of them. Why must he be the one to carry souls? Why must one among the holy host be marked with endings, while the others bathed in light and song? The angel of death stood still, not in rebellion, but in obedience misunderstood. He did not plead, he did not argue, but the silence around him grew heavy, and the angels gathered, some with wings of fire, some were crowned with praise, all of them radiant except for him. He bore no light, only stillness. What has he done, they asked, that he should hold dominion over the breath of mankind? The question echoed beneath the pillars of eternity, and even the winds waited for a reply. Did the one who formed them speak? Not with a voice, not with wrath, but with a silence deeper than death itself. And in that silence, the angel bowed, not because he was shamed, but because he remembered the whisper that birthed him, the whisper of a name not yet spoken. What is it like to be chosen for sorrow? To walk while others soar? To arrive when all others flee? In that sacred gathering, an angel stepped forward. It is said he had a voice like thunder and eyes of emerald flame, and he wept. Not for himself, but for the brother beside him who bore no song. "Let the task be shared," he cried. "Let him not walk alone." But the command had already been sealed, for some burdens cannot be shared, lest the world unravel under the weight of mercy. The angel of death did not speak. He simply lowered his gaze, not in guilt, but in reverence, because he understood what they did not. Obedience is not proven in joy. It is proven in silence. And from the throne, a light descended. Not bright, not loud, but sure. It rested upon him alone. And in that moment, the other angels understood, not with joy, not with relief, but with awe. For he had been entrusted with the final touch, the last breath, the return. And no crown gleams brighter than the silence of such trust. What happens when even angels must accept the mystery of another's calling? Do they mourn it? Do they revere it? Or do they simply watch as one among them walks a path no other will ever follow? The battle was not about blades. It was of understanding. And in the stillness that followed, they stepped aside. Not because he demanded space, but because his presence was too sacred to stand near without trembling. From that day forward, he walked not just between souls, but between the awe and the silence of his own kind. He was not cast out, he was set apart. And in his steps, the earth would one day know the touch of eternity. What if the heaviest crown is the one no one sees? There is a chamber beneath the throne, where no feet dare tread unless summoned, not of gold, not of stone, but made of stillness woven from the breath between decrees. It is there the angel stood, not called by name, but by need. He did not arrive in haste, he does not rush, for even when the worlds tremble, he moves only at the hour written for him. This time, it was not to carry a soul. It was to receive a question. An angel had refused. He was called to gather a soul marked by the highest, a soul weighed and found ready. But he hesitated, not from arrogance, but from love. For the soul was radiant, devoted, pure. How could he take what the world still needed? And so he stood still, torn between command and compassion, the chamber filled with silence. And then the one who never questions entered, the angel of death. He looked at the trembling one, and though no words passed between them, something shifted in the air. He stepped forward. "I will go." The words were not heard. They were known, and the heavens tilted slightly, not in shock, but in reverence. What kind of being accepts what others cannot bear? Not out of duty, but out of mercy for the one who hesitated. Does he take joy in his role? He does not rejoice. He does not weep. He only fulfills. Because to him, a soul is not a victory or a loss. It is a return, and he is simply the bridge. He found the soul, the one so pure, so beloved, that even the other angels hesitated to come near. He did not speak. He did not announce his presence. He simply stood close enough for the soul to feel peace. And when the time came, the soul did not resist, because it recognized something older than fear, a presence that carried no threat, only completion. He received the soul, like a mother receives a child, with quiet, with care, with reverence. And when he returned to the chamber, the others did not look away. They bowed, because obedience that costs nothing is not sacred, but the obedience that walks through sorrow without faltering, that is holiness. He did not smile. He did not glow. He simply returned to his silence, another name held gently in his being. And the angels understood. There would be no second who shared his path. Not because none were worthy, but because some tasks must be borne by one alone. And so, in the realm where praise never ceases, there is one being who never sings, but whose silence is the most sacred sound ever known. Is obedience still holy when no one praises it? The scrolls of the unseen speak of one moment, a moment not recorded in time, not measured in stars, but carved into the hush between divine commands. The moment the angel of death wept, not from sorrow, not from pain, but from understanding, for he had been called to carry a soul whose life had been a prayer carved into flesh, a soul that had loved without demand, served without witness, and died without a name. He found her beneath a tree, her hands folded over a chest that no longer rose. She had no prophet's crown, no tribe to mourn her, only silence, and yet he paused. Not because he doubted, he never doubts, but because he recognized something in her passing. It was not the end. It was the fulfillment of a secret obedience that no one had seen, but heaven had remembered. And as he lifted her soul, not with fingers, but with stillness, he did something he had never done before. He closed her eyes, not because it was needed, but because it was gentle. Does the angel feel tenderness? Not like men do. His is deeper, the kind of reverence that does not need expression. It simply is. She rose in silence, her soul shimmering like dew before dawn. And in her gaze, there was no fear, only recognition, as if she had waited for him her whole life without knowing it. And in that gaze, he remembered the chamber beneath the throne, the place where he had once stood among the hosts, marked by silence and obedience. He remembered the light that fell upon him, and how the others looked away not in scorn, but in awe. And he wondered, not with rebellion, but with longing. Who carries me when my task is done? Is there one who will take my name from the scroll I have never written on? The answer was not given. It never is, for the angel of death is not meant to be carried. He is meant to carry until the end, the final end, when time itself will exhale its last breath and all names have been spoken. Until then, he walks through deserts and gardens, through palaces and tents, through war and worship. He walks, not seeking, not avoiding, simply arriving at the moment, already written. And the angels above, they no longer question him. They make space when he passes. They lower their wings, not out of fear, but out of reverence, because they know. He walks where they cannot. He enters the silence they only sing about. And when he returns to the chamber beneath the throne, he does not rest. He does not recount. He simply waits for the next name, the next breath, the next return. What does it mean to carry the end of every story, but never your own? There is no ink on the scroll, no parchment, no quill, and yet it exists, folded not in paper, but in will, bound not by thread, but by silence. They call it the scroll of names. It is not read with eyes nor written by hand. It exists where time forgets to pass, where stars are born only to illuminate a single moment, the moment your name is called. Who holds it? Not the scribes, not the watchers. Only one. He who walks in stillness, he who never speaks until the end. The angel of death. He does not write on it. He does not add or erase. He simply remembers. For the scroll lives within him, each name inscribed like breath upon the wind, never lost, never delayed. When the time comes, the name burns bright, like a flare in the quiet sky of his being, and he walks, always on time, never early, never late. Does he ever dread a name? Not because he fears he does not fear, but because he remembers. Each name is a soul. Each soul is a life, and every life is a story that will now end in his presence. He walks as one who has read the final page before the first word was ever spoken. What does it feel like to carry every ending? Does the scroll ever grow heavy? It is said he carries it within his robe, pressed against a heart that does not beat, but knows the rhythm of all beating things. And when he arrives, he does not need to speak. The soul knows. It always knows. Some cry, some smile. Some fall to their knees, others rise without looking back. But all of them hear one thing, a name, their name, spoken not aloud, but within, not with sound, but with certainty. And the angel does not confirm. He does not explain. He simply waits for the soul to recognize that its story has been fulfilled. There is a tale told in the valleys of the East of a man who tried to forget his name. He wandered for decades, changing faces, changing lands, trying to outrun the moment the scroll would burn for him. But when the angel came, he did not chase. He did not accuse. He simply sat at the edge of the man's final resting place, unseen. And when the man closed his eyes, he heard it, his name. Not spoken in judgment, but in remembering. The scroll had never been forgotten, and neither had the angel. Why does he carry the names? Why not let the stars remember, or the winds, or the graves? Because stars flicker, winds change, graves are forgotten, but he never forgets. Even if you live and die nameless in the eyes of the world, your name will burn within him at the hour written before you were born, and he will come, not to take, but to carry. What if your name was the first ever written on the scroll? What if it is the last? He knows. He always knows, but he never tells, because some truths are too sacred to be spoken. What is a name, if not a breath, waiting to be returned? The scroll does not forget. It does not sleep, nor does it fade with age. It does not wither when the body withers, nor rust when memory rusts. It is etched not in time, but in decree. And every name, from the first whisper of dust to the last cry of a forgotten child, shines within it like a sealed star. They are not listed by glory, not in order of status or shame. The scroll is not measured by crowns or crimes. It burns in order of return. Each name kindled when the hour comes near. Each life meets when the breath loosens its grip. Who wrote it? No hand, no voice, only will. And the angel of death, he is not the writer, he is the keeper. He does not question, he does not revise. Even if a mother weeps at the name of her infant, even if a martyr stands ready while his enemies dance, he does not falter. He has seen too many names burn. He has carried too many souls who thought they still had more to give. Yet he never hesitates, because every name that flares within him is already answered. Every soul he gathers is not taken, but remembered. There is a legend of a man who once begged the angel to read his name aloud before his time. He fell to his knees and wept. If I hear it, I'll live better, I'll walk straighter, just say it once. But the angel only looked at him, not in anger, not in pity, in stillness, because to know the hour is not a blessing, it is a burden. And even he does not speak a name until it is time. For the name is not just a word, it is a door. And doors, once opened, do not close again. The scroll is not seen, but some feel it. The dying, in their final moments, often whisper things they should not know. Names, visions, a calm that makes no sense in pain. Is it the scroll opening within the angel's being? Is it the memory returning to the soul before it lets go? He does not say, but he knows. And when the name fades, when the soul has crossed, it is not erased. It becomes silent, sacred silence. A silence that only he carries, layer upon layer, like veils folded across eternity. What does he do with all the names, all the silence? Perhaps he offers them back, not all at once, but one by one, like seeds placed into the soil, that will never be seen again, but are never truly lost. Even now the scroll continues. Names yet unborn already flicker. Names already buried still glow, not in warning, but in peace. For the scroll is not a threat, it is a promise, that none are forgotten, that no life passes unnoticed, that every soul, no matter how hidden, how broken, how small, will be carried. And when the stars fall and time exhales its last breath, the scroll will roll closed, not with thunder, but with a sound only the angel will hear, a sound he has waited for since the beginning. And when that moment comes, when no name remains to be read, what then? Who will speak his name? Who will carry him? But he does not think of that now. There is still time, still names, still breath to be gathered, still souls to be returned. And the angel walks again, the scroll burning within him, a lantern of memory none can see. What if your name was never lost, only waiting to be called home? In the folds of the heavens where no wings flutter, where even the stars dare not shine too brightly, there lies a stillness, not empty, not silent, but full of names, waiting to be remembered. The angel of death walks through it often, not to choose, not to summon, but to remember. What does it mean to remember a name before it is ever spoken on earth? What weight does it carry to feel the echo of a soul before it has learned to cry? He has felt the thrum of every name, not as music, but as a rhythm. Each one is unique. Each one is sacred. And when the time arrives, when the soul has lived enough to be gathered, that rhythm sharpens a pulse within the stillness. Then he knows, not through visions, not through command. He simply feels it, and he walks, always at the hour written in a place no pen has touched, always with the scroll burning inside him, not with fire, but with certainty. Some ask, can a name be delayed? Can life plead for more time? But the scroll does not bend, it does not argue, for its ink is not of this world, and its keeper is not cruel, only faithful. There are those who try to hide from their names, warriors who chase glory to drown out their dread, scholars who bury themselves in scrolls of men, lovers who think love will make death forget. But the angel has never forgotten a single name, not even the ones who cursed him, not even the ones who welcomed him, because to him all names are equal in silence. He once stood beside a tyrant, a man whose name darkened cities, whose breath ended the breath of others. And when the hour came, the angel did not flinch. He did not strike. He only waited. And when the soul rose, twisted with regret and pride, the angel received it, without hatred, without honor, only the truth. Because the scroll carries all names, blessed, the broken, the beloved, the fear. He is not the judge. He is the reminder, and reminders do not flatter, they simply return. But there are other names, names that flicker brighter. The mother who died with her child's name on her lips, the elder who whispered prayers in a forgotten tongue, the orphan who gave his bread away before hunger silenced him. These names burn in him a little differently, not because they are worth more, but because they echo deeper. And when he carries them, he walks a little slower, as if reluctant to let the moment end. The scroll holds them all. It does not forget the first breath. It does not ignore the last. Even the nameless are written, the ones buried without stone, the ones never called aloud, the ones erased by men. They shine still within the angel, because their names were never meant for earth alone, they were meant for return. And one day, when the world quiets, and the stars fold their light, and the breath of time slows to a final hush, the angel will open the last name. And it will burn so softly, so fully, that even the heavens will lower their gaze. And when he carries it, he will no longer walk, he will wait, because the scroll will be empty. And silence will no longer need a keeper. Until then, he continues, step by step, name by name, always faithful, always unseen. And when your name is called, will you remember that you were never forgotten? The earth stills when a child dies, not in thunder, not in flames, but in breathless surrender. A stillness so complete that even the sky forgets how to speak. The leaves stop rustling, the wind forgets the path it was traveling, and time, for a moment, kneels. What is the weight of such a soul? So small, so light, yet able to bend the hearts of angels and bring silence to heaven itself? The angel of death approaches gently, more gently than he ever does. He does not arrive as a shadow, he comes as a hush too sacred for sound. He does not linger in the room. He stands just outside it, as if asking permission from the one who knows every tear before it falls. There are no footsteps, no sign, only a shift in the air. And when he enters, it is with reverence, because to take a child is not to end a life. It is to interrupt a dream and carry it back to the one who dreamed it first. What prayer is whispered by a mother who realizes the cry she waited for will never come? What cry escapes a father when the hands he hoped to guide go still? The angel hears it all, not with ears, but with his being, and he does not recoil, he does not respond, he remembers, because even grief must be witnessed by something eternal. He gathers the soul not with hands, but with stillness, and in that stillness the child does not cry, does not flinch, because the soul of a child knows the silence he carries, knows it as a mother knows the breath of her newborn. Know it without needing to be taught. They say the angel sings to the children, not with words, not with melody, but with presence so soft, so full of longing, that even sorrow forgets how to breathe for a moment. He cradles the child, not like a servant, but like a guardian, returning a treasure that was only ever on loan. There are scrolls too sacred to be read, names too pure to be spoken aloud. These are the children. Some were never born. Some took one breath. Some laughed only once. Some danced in light before the fever came. But all of them are carried, and none of them are forgotten. Where does he take them? No scripture says, no voice reveals, because it is a place no sorrow may enter. A realm where no pain follows, no memory wounds, no night returns. He does not turn back after leaving them there. He does not weep, but he waits for a long, sacred moment just outside the gate, as if reluctant to let go, because even the angel who carries kings and prophets knows that the soul of a child is something even he cannot explain. They say he returns slower after such tasks, that his silence deepens, that the stars dim a little longer after the passing of the young, and the mother, the one left behind, she is not abandoned. For though the angel of death cannot speak, he leaves behind a hush so deep that it folds into her grief like arms unseen. And sometimes when the night is quiet enough, she feels it, not comfort, not clarity, but a stillness that says, "You were not alone when you let go." What if the soul of a child does not ascend because it was never far from heaven to begin with? There are angels who record deeds, there are angels who carry prayers, but only one walks the path where lullabies are interrupted. Only one gathers the unfinished breath of a child. He walks slowly, not out of fear, but out of honor. For every child is a trust, a secret whispered into the world, then returned before it could be broken. What does it mean to carry someone so small? Does the angel's silence become deeper when the voice he comes for has barely begun to speak? In a room filled with light, a cradle stood still. No wind stirred the curtains, no footfall broke the stillness. Only the flickering of a candle, as if the flame itself hesitated. And there, wrapped in linen, barely more than breath, was a child. The angel stepped forward, but not alone. For it is said that when a child dies, others gather, not men, not mourners, but angels, those whose wings have never touched war, whose voices have only ever sung of mercy. They stand as witnesses, not to judge, but to remember. The angel of death stands among them, not taller, not darker, but quieter. And when he lifts the soul, they do not cry, they bow. Because in that moment, something perfect is returning, not broken, not wasted, just returned. Why are some lives so short? The angel does not answer. He cannot, for even he was never told the reason. But he knows the pattern, he has seen it, and when he carries a child, he walks slower, as if each step is a verse in a song only heaven understands. There are no words to describe what he feels, because feeling is a thing of flesh. But if he could feel, it would be this: weightless grief, not sorrow, not despair, but the grief of a purpose so pure that it was never meant to last in a world stained by breath. He walks through gardens, through clouds that do not rain, to a door that no adult may pass. And there he places the soul, not down, but forward. And the child is not afraid. Because to be carried by the angel of death, when you have never known sin, is to be held by someone who has never hurt a soul, only received them. There are no graves for these children, not truly. Even if the earth claims their bones, their names do not sink. They rise, and the angel remembers them with a stillness unlike any other. What mother sings to no child? What father dreams of footsteps that will never come? The angel walks beside them too, not to explain, but to remind myself that the child was never lost, only returned, that there is a silence in heaven where names like theirs echo forever, small, soft, eternal. And sometimes, in the quiet after grief, the mother feels a warmth in her chest, a pressure in her arms where the child once lay. She thinks it is a memory, but it is the hush the angel left behind, a sacred trace, like breath on a mirror. There are those who say the angel leaves a message when he carries the soul of a child, not with a voice, not with writing, but in the air. A feeling that says, you loved them well. They were never alone. What if every child's final breath is a whisper that only angels know how to carry? It is said that every time a child dies, a place opens in the sky, not wide, not loud, but enough. Enough for a soul as small as breath to pass through without stirring the stars. The angel of death knows this place. He does not look toward it. He walks in harmony with it, like a shepherd guiding something already destined to arrive. What is it about a child's soul that changes the way he moves? He has carried the old, the wicked, the holy. He has received kings and prophets, tyrants and lovers, but only children make his silence weep, not in tears, but in stillness deeper than before, deeper than Cain, deeper than Pharaoh, deeper even than Moses, because a child has no weight in sin, no shadow from pride, only the flicker of a story cut short with divine intention. One evening, long ago, a village buried a boy. They did not understand. He had laughed that morning. He had danced through dust with his sister, carved names into soft bark with trembling fingers, and by nightfall gone. The mother wept with her face to the ground, not calling for God, not cursing the angel, only asking, who will carry my son now that I no longer can? She did not know that he had already been carried, not away, but home. The angel had stood beside the child, as breath slowed like fading wind. He did not touch the boy. He waited until the soul rose, not startled, not afraid, just curious. And when the boy reached toward him, the angel did what he does only for the innocent. He knelt, because innocence is the only crown. He himself cannot wear it. They walked through a field that no one sees, where lilies grow from the names of children, and each step the child took planted light beneath his feet. The angel said nothing, but the child smiled, as if he understood the silence better than the world that had left him behind. Do children forget their parents? Do they cry in the arms of eternity? The angel does not answer, but the breeze that follows him carries the scent of comfort, not sorrow. He returns alone, always alone. But the place he left them, that sky door, that cradle of light, remains open for them forever. And the mother, still weeping into the soil, feels a sudden warmth on her back. Not fire, not wind, just a presence. She does not know that it is the angel, pausing in the place her grief has carved. He cannot bring the child back. He cannot speak the words she needs. But he lingers, for one breath longer than he should. And in that breath, her sorrow quiets just enough to let memory sing. Not a song of loss, a song of holding, a lullaby wrapped in silence. He leaves no footprints, he leaves no answer. But she lifts her face from the dust and begins to rock back and forth, arms empty, heart full. She hums not to forget, but to remember. The angel has gone, but so has the child, and both, in their own way, left behind a silence that knows your name even if you never speak again. And if the soul of a child is the softest thing ever made, who else but the angel of death could carry it without breaking it? He was not always feared. In the beginning, he was a mystery, unspoken, unformed, a whisper that moved through the bones of prophets, a presence behind the veil. But time gave him a title, and men gave him a face. They called him Death. They called him Enemy, not because he struck them, but because he could not be stopped. What is more terrifying than a presence that waits even when you run? Not cruel, not hasty, just faithful, in the way that morning follows night. The angel of death does not chase. He does not haunt. He does not knock. He simply arrives when the soul has no more places to hide. Kings built monuments to escape him. They filled tombs with gold, with prayers carved in stone. But he was not moved by riches. He walks through palaces as he does through doorways, unannounced, unburdened. One king once stood at his mirror, draped in silk and shadow, and whispered, "Not today." But the angel stood behind him anyway, not taking, only watching, because even denial cannot delay the one who walks by decree. What war has not summoned him? He does not fight, but he gathers. From fields soaked in blood, from ruins where no cries remain, he walks through the aftermath, collecting souls like candles that forgot how to burn. He does not mourn the fallen, he honors them, not with tears, but with stillness, the kind of stillness that knows all striving is over. And what of those who curse him, who spit at the sky in defiance, daring the darkness to come? He does not answer, he never has, because death is not a voice, it is the end of voices. But what happens when the angel stands before one who smiles, one who does not plead? There are those rare few whose eyes do not tremble, the aged servant, the weary lover, the childless mother who buried too many hopes. They see him and they exhale, because to them he is not the enemy, he is the return, and he honors their surrender. Not with words, but with reverence. He steps closer not as thief, but as a companion. What war is more sacred than the one between man's will to live and his soul's longing to rest? What if death is not the enemy, but the gatekeeper we misunderstood? He is called the last enemy, because he is the last thing every man must face alone. Not friends, not foe, but a mirror. And in that mirror, every crown falls, every mask dissolves, every fear comes home. Yet still he walks, never forcing, never faltering. He has watched empires fall beneath their own breath. He has gathered saints from alleyways and tyrants from thrones. He does not distinguish, he does not flinch, because all names return to him in the end, written, sealed, fulfilled. And as he carries them one by one, the silence behind him deepens, a silence not of sorrow, but of completion. And when the last enemy is faced, what if he is not dead, but the part of us that feared him all along? There was once a man who tried to bind him, a sorcerer cloaked in secrets, armed with scrolls dipped in blood and dust. He carved names into bone, spoke forgotten syllables under eclipsed moons, and believed he could command even the angel of death. But the angel does not answer to spells. No chain can hold him, no symbol confuse him, no plea unravel the decree he carries. He arrived nonetheless. not in defiance, but because the man's name had ripened. And when the sorcerer looked into the stillness before him, his voice withered. He did not scream, he did not run, he simply understood, because no one truly believes until they see the silence take shape. What is it about death that humbles every tongue? Even the proudest fall quiet. Even the wise become like children when faced with the one who has seen their name since before they were born. There is no magic against him, because he is not power, he has permission. And permission flows from a place no hand can reach. Others, too, have tried to escape. There were kings who hid their bodies in mountains, who fed the poor and praised the heavens, not out of piety, but out of fear. And still he came. They built towers, laid oceans between them and time. But the angel does not measure distance. He arrives when the breath grows shallow, whether on marble floors or straw mats. He has found men in their prime, their faces lit with joy, laughter still warm on their lips. And he has paused, not out of hesitation, but because such beauty deserves silence. Not sorrow, no regret, just silence. For all men know one truth beneath all denial, that they will meet him. The last enemy. Yet perhaps enemy is not the word. Not truly. For enemies to pursue, they strike, they conquer, they rejoice in your fall. But the angel of death does none of these. He does not hunt, he does not boast. He simply stands where the path ends and the gate opens. And when the gate opens, what enters? Is it a shadow? Is it light? He does not say. He does not turn to look, because he has never walked through the gate himself. He has only ever brought others. There is a sacred ache in that, to be the one who knows the way, but may never walk it. To carry souls to the edge of eternity and then retreat, always unseen. And perhaps that is why he is called the last. Because no man sees what lies beyond him. No man returns to describe the silence after his passing. And yet, there is a softness to the way he carries, the weary, the aged hand, the trembled breath, the closing eyes of one who is ready. There is no violence in his approach, no haste, only stillness, the kind that comforts, the kind that frees. And in that final breath, the soul surrenders, not to fear, but to peace, because by then they understand. He was never the enemy. He was the keeper of endings, the guardian of return, the one who stood by not to take, but to lead. And if death is the last enemy, who, then, is the first friend who waits beyond him? He does not speak, but his silence has defeated empires, not with battle, but with waiting. For death needs no army, only time. And time obeys him as surely as breath returns to the sky. The angel of death has watched rulers drink potions, hide in towers, whisper secrets to the stars in hopes of buying more hours. But no offering delays the moment written. Not gold, not prayer, not the trembling hands of a physician who cannot understand why the body slips away, despite all effort. Because when the hour comes, he is already there. He does not open the door. He is the door, and beyond it no man returns. There is a tale of a warrior, undefeated in 100 battles, who declared, "If death meets me, I shall cut him down." He did not fall in war, but in sleep. And the angel, he did not flinch. He received the warrior like he receives a child, with stillness, with remembrance, because death does not see titles, he sees names. And when your name is written in his scroll, there is no hiding behind armor. There is no fortress, no mountain, no sea wide enough to silence the decree. But there is something deeper than fear, deeper even than death: acceptance. Those who have found it do not resist when he arrives. They do not beg, do not flee. They greet him as if greeting a long-awaited messenger, not because they desire death, but because they trust the one who carries them through it. What power lies in such surrender? To meet the last enemy not as a threat, but as a servant of something higher. The angel has known many such souls. The old woman who fed orphans, with hands trembling from hunger. The blind man who recited scripture from memory while the world ignored him. The forgotten servant who died in shadow, but whose name burned like gold in the unseen scroll. He walks slower to them, not out of grief, for he does not grieve, but because some returns are sacred, and sacred things must never be rushed. He has gathered martyrs and murderers. He has walked beside saints and thieves, but the ones who meet him with peace leave a silence behind that lasts for generations. He walks through their homes after they have gone, not to linger but to listen, to the echo of their lives, to the memory of kindness, left in cups, in blankets, in books that will never be finished. Because death does not erase, it reveals, and he is not here to undo, he is here to carry. And in carrying, he remembers. There will come a day when the last enemy himself will be undone. A day when the scroll is empty, when no name flickers, when no soul waits. On that day, he will no longer walk. And when that hour comes, for even he has an hour, the one who whispered his name in the beginning will call him home. But until then, he continues, through fire, through birth, through war, through prayer, not to take, but to complete it. He is the last shadow before light becomes eternal. What if death has never been our enemy, only the reflection of all we still fear to let go? There is a realm beyond even the eyes of angels, a place not mentioned in Scripture, nor carved in the breath of prophets. It has no gates, no throne, no judgment, only silence pure, ancient, and whole. This is where the angel of death rests. Not in slumber, he does not sleep, not in exile. He is not cast away. He rests because even stillness needs stillness. Even the keeper of ends must dwell somewhere untouched by beginnings. Where is it? No one knows. Perhaps it is beneath the rivers of time. Perhaps beyond the last breath of a dying star. Perhaps behind the veil we mistake for the night sky. But it exists, and he returns to it when the scroll is momentarily quiet, when the names do not yet burn, when the wind holds no farewell. There he sits, not on a throne, not in chains, but on a stone carved by silence itself. He watches nothing. He listens to what cannot be spoken, the hush between lives, the sighs of unborn souls, the questions never asked aloud. Will it hurt? Will anyone remember me? Will I be alone? He hears these not with ears, but with the gravity of his presence. And though he never answers, his stillness carries something deeper than answers, reverence. What does he think? Does he feel? None can say. But there are whispers pass like breath between cloistered scribes that in this hidden place he remembers the names he did not take, the ones who were spared, the ones who were delayed. And he wonders, not in longing, but in awe. Because even to him, life is a mystery. He has never lived it, only ended it. He does not know laughter from within, only from afar. He does not know love, only the echo it leaves behind. And so he rests, not in fatigue, but I'm waiting. He does not hum, he does not write. He holds a small lamp not made of oil or glass, but of remembrance. Its light flickers with the breath of those he has carried. And sometimes, when the wind from beyond stirs the air of that place, the light dims, not in grief, but in honor. Because not all souls fade quietly. Some burn so brightly that even eternity must pause. This is where he brings the burdens he cannot name, not to lay them down, but to sit with them, a mother's last whisper, a child's incomplete dream, a prophet's unfinished verse. He holds them not to solve, only to remember. For that is his sacred task, to carry, to remember, to return. And here, in the place where no star shines, no clock turns, no angel sings, he waits, not for command, for rhythm, the moment when a new name glows, and the silence must move again. Until then, he rests. And the world keeps spinning, unaware of the one who sits beneath its breath, gathering the silence we leave behind. What does the end rest upon, when there is nothing left to carry but memory? There is no day or night in that hidden place. No sun to rise, no moon to watch over his shoulders. Only a steady twilight, bathed in the hush of all things returned. The angel does not move. He has moved enough. He has walked through every door, stepped through every nation, gathered kings, children, strangers, lovers, and left behind silence where names once bloomed. But here there are no names, only echoes, not the kind that fades, the kind that deepens. He sits not on a throne, but on a ledge that feels as old as breath itself. Before the first soul, before the first garden, before the first man was formed from dust, this place was already waiting for him. Does he ever feel alone? He is not watched. He is not followed. The scribes write no songs for him. The choirs lift no hymns in his name. And yet, every soul he has touched, they remember him in their final gaze. So perhaps he carries with him all the eyes that ever saw him. Perhaps in this place those eyes remain, not staring, just shining softly. A constellation of memories that never ask to be spoken aloud. There is a basin beside him, not of water, not of glass. It is quiet, and within it he sometimes watches, not out of curiosity, but out of faithfulness. He sees the child who will not wake. He sees the old man gripping his chest in a field of wheat. He sees the sailor on his last voyage, the prisoner on his last breath, the believer whispering their last prayer. He does not reach for them, not yet. Only when their names begin to flicker, only when the scroll within him warms again with light. And so he waits. Some say time does not touch him. Others say he is made of time, the final heartbeat in every hour. But here, time forgets to breathe. Here, he is only stillness in its most sacred form. Is there comfort in his stillness? Does he feel peace? He does not know peace as those he carries do. He has never been carried. He has only ever been the one who gathers. But perhaps, in this place, there is something that resembles rest, a stillness without burden, a silence without sorrow, a breath without endings. He touches nothing, speaks to no one. But every now and then, something arrives, a feather of light, a ripple in the air, the memory of a soul that touched him deeply. These are not summoned. They come of their own will. The laughter of a child he once carried, the song of an old woman who kissed the forehead of death and called it mercy, the whisper of a man who met him without fear and left behind a final prayer for him. They drift across the place where he rests and fade. He does not chase them. He only watches, as if to say, "You are remembered," and then silence returns until the next name glows, until the scroll stirs within him once more, until the world calls him back, because he is not meant to rest forever. He is not the end of all things, only the one who carries us toward it. But this place, this silence between names, is his only home. And when he rises again, it is not in haste. It is not in sorrow. It is with the stillness of one who has done this since before time had language, and will do it until even time is no more. And when he rests between names, who watches the one who has watched us all? The angel rises without sound, not from sleep, he has never known sleep, but from stillness fulfilled. Something stirs within him, a flicker, a name. It glows like morning behind the veil, and with it the silence shifts, not broken. I only moved. He does not sigh. He does not stretch. He simply begins to walk. Out of the place where no star shines, out from beneath the resting sky, into the world that has already begun forgetting its own fragility. As he leaves, he glances once not with eyes, but with presence. A final nod to the silence that held him. Not goodbye. There are no goodbyes in his journey, only continuations. The path before him is not chosen, it is written. He walks as one who never doubts where his feet will fall, even though no map marks his way. Because where the name glows, he will be. But behind him, the place remains. It does not dissolve. It does not decay. It waits. What kind of stillness waits for the one who carries every ending? What kind of rest is prepared for one who has never tasted joy, never spoken love, never asked for anything in return? Perhaps only this place, this hush in the middle of the eternal. Here time does not chase. Here memory does not ache. It only listens. The traces of him linger like dust beneath holy light, soft, unshaken, untouched by even the wind of passing years. This is where the questions come that no prophet ever dared to write. Who carries the one who carries all? Who calls the angel when his name is the last to burn? He does not wonder about these things while walking, but the place behind him remembers him. And perhaps one day, when the scroll closes, when the last breath is carried, when time folds in on itself like a robe returned to its maker, he will come here again, not to wait, but to remain, not to rest, but to be. Until then, his steps echo through the world again, soft as dusk, certain as shadow, faithful as the wind, and the place where he rests, that hollow of holy silence, wait once more, as it always has, as it always will. And when the last name has been carried, will even silence weep for the one who no longer walks? He has carried kings and children, prophets and prisoners, the nameless and the remembered. He has walked every valley, stood at every door, waited in every silence. But one name remains, one soul that has not yet been called, not a man, not a woman, not even a breath made of dust. Time. Time itself has a name, and one day the scroll will burn with it. What does the angel of death feel when he sees it? He has never paused, he has never faltered, but for this name he does not move immediately, because it is the name that ends the scroll, not just a soul, not just a breath, but the rhythm beneath every heartbeat. He does not carry time like a child. He does not lift it like a soul. He stands before it, the endless hour, the great beginning, now waiting for its own end. And in that moment, the angel becomes the last thing still moving. The stars stop turning. The rivers forget their beds. The wind folds itself into quiet. Everything waits. For him, he steps forward, slowly, not from uncertainty, from reverence. Because this is not just the final name, it is the final door. What happens when the one who was never born meets the one who has never died? Does the scroll close by itself? Does the silence become whole? He touches nothing. He says nothing. He only arrives. And time recognizes him, not as an end, but as fulfillment. And in that holy hush, the scroll dissolves, not on fire, not in shadow, but in light. So soft, so full, it is not blind. It opens. He lets it go. For the first time, his hands, which never held now, released. There are no more names, no more hours, no more tears. Only the angel remains. And a voice not heard but known asks the only question he has never answered. Will you come home now? He does not kneel. He does not rise. He becomes still, still as he was before the first death. Still as he was when his name was whispered by the one who made all things end. And in that stillness, he gives the only answer he has ever known. He walks, not to carry, but to return. And behind him, the world exhales its last. No sorrow, no joy, only peace. When the messenger has no more to carry, what is left for him to become? He walks through a world without names. No footsteps follow him. No eyes remain to witness. Even the stars have folded themselves into silence. Time is no longer. History has closed its eyes. The scroll has vanished into the breath that first called it into being, and he, the angel of death, is the last, still moving. He walks not on land. There is no land. not in the way men once knew it. He walks through remembrance, the traces of voices, the fading of songs, the echo of final breaths. All of them swirl around him like veils made of memory. And in his heart, if he has one, there is only stillness, not emptiness, completion. For he has done all that was asked. He has obeyed every whisper, he has carried every soul. He has never spoken out of turn. He has never touched what was not his to touch. He has done the thing no other was ever asked to do. He walked alone for all of time. Now he is being called, not by name. His name was only ever known by the one who whispered it before beginnings. He is being called by silence itself, not the silence he carried, but the silence that birthed him. He stands at the edge of something he cannot define. For all his carrying, he has never crossed. The veil that he brought others to is now before him. And for the first time he waits. Is it fear? He has never known it. Is it longing? He does not understand the word, but something holds him there, between steps. Perhaps it is the wind, returning at last to carry him the way he carried countless others. Perhaps it is the weight of a task ending, a burden released only once all burdens are complete. Or perhaps it is something softer, an invitation, not a command, not a decree, a question without words. Are you ready? And he does not answer. He does not need to, because the one who asks already knows. He steps forward, not into light, not into the shadows, into stillness. The kind of stillness he carried all his life, now opening its arms to carry him. No trumpets sound, no gates open. There is no chorus waiting, no hands clapping, no voices rising. Only the hush that first called him into being. And into that hush he disappears. Not in death, he cannot die. Not in the end, he was never meant to end. But in return, he returns. To the place that birthed him in silence. To the one who never wept. To the name that was spoken once and never again. And in that final silence, something happens that has never happened before. The angel is carried. He who carried all things is now held. He who brought souls to peace is now given peace. Not in sleep, he does not sleep, but in stillness, deeper than purpose, deeper than breath, deeper than time. The scroll is gone, the stars are gone, the world is gone. But he remains, not walking, not waiting, just being. And the hush that always followed him now surrounds him forever. And now that the messenger has been carried, who will remember the one who remembered us all? In the silence that followed his return, nothing moved. Not the wind, not the stars, not even the breath of eternity. It was as if creation itself had bowed, not in mourning but in recognition. He had walked the length of time, unseen, unthanked, unresting. He had carried the old, the forgotten, the fierce, the tender. He had cradled the child, walked beside the widow, stood at the gates of every kingdom without ever being invited in. Yet never once did he falter. Never once did he choose his own path. His will was not his. His journey was never for himself. And now, his footsteps had ceased. He no longer moved through time, for time had surrendered its last breath. He no longer listened for names no longer burned. He no longer watched over endings, for all things had ended. Only stillness remained. But this was not emptiness, this was not void. This was the silence before the first word was ever spoken. The hush before be. And within it, the angel was not forgotten. For memory itself now breathed through him. He was no longer carrying names. He had become the memory of names. Every sigh, every tear, every final heartbeat held, not in scrolls, not in sky, but in him, not as much weight as worship, because obedience becomes its own form of remembrance. And there, in that realm beyond form and sound, he was known, truly known, not as an enemy, not at the end, but as a messenger, the final messenger, the one who never wept but held every sorrow, the one who never asked but always arrived. The one who did not choose, but always obeyed. Now he rests, not waiting, not in longing, not even in reward, but in return. Back to the hush that shaped him, back to the silence that trusted him, back to the presence that never needed to speak twice. And all things are quiet, not because there is nothing left, but because there is no more fear, no more endings, no more names to call, no more night, just the sacred, endless hush. And in that hush, he remains, not alone, not forgotten, not buried, remembered. And the wind, when it returns, will not carry sorrow. It will carry his stillness into every breath, into every hush, into every silence that waits to become holy. What if the last thing we meet at the end is the one who walked beside us from the very beginning? Close your eyes. Let the silence settle. Let the weight you carry fall into the hands that have never failed to carry another. He is no longer walking. There are no more names, and yet he still remembers yours. Sleep now in the hush he left behind, where no fear follows, where no end waits, only the peace of being remembered by the one who was never meant to be known. And if you wake, let it be into a world where even silence feels sacred.